The cursed video Ethan Carter was never a superstitious man. At 27, living alone in a small Brooklyn apartment, he spent his nights browsing obscure forums, watching disturbing videos just to test his fear tolerance. He loved telling his friends, "Fear is just a trick of the mind." But that night, the trick felt real. His digital clock blinked 2:43 a.m. when he found the bizarre post. The video that watches you back. Warning. This is not just a horror film, it is a portal. Those who watch are watched in return. You have been warned. A single link was attached. No comments, no likes. It was as if previous viewers had decided not to interact with it. Ethan smirked. Classic internet hoax. He clicked the link. The screen flickered static before a crude video player opened. No timeline bar, no pause button, just play. For a moment he hesitated. But curiosity won. He pressed play. The first thing he noticed was the sound. No music. Just a muffled, heavy breathing, like an animal trying to stay calm. The image appeared, a narrow hallway stretching endlessly, dimly lit by a flickering bulb. The walls had a strange texture, something that seemed to move. But the worst part was the doors. They were breathing. The wooden surfaces swelled and contracted like lungs inhaling and exhaling. Ethan swallowed. Weird effect, but not scary. Then the camera moved, not smoothly, but as if someone or something was crawling on the ground, dragging itself forward. The breathing grew heavier, and then a shadow passed at the end of the hallway, not just a vague shape. It had eyes, two pale, glowing eyes staring back through the screen. Ethan's pulse quickened. Something deep inside him whispered to close the laptop. But before he could react, the image changed. He saw himself, his own reflection on the laptop screen, but something was wrong. He blinked. His reflection did not. He tilted his head slightly, and the reflection followed, but a second too late. And then the reflection smiled. The video cut to static, and then blood-red text appeared on the screen. "You have been seen." Ethan tried to close the laptop, but his fingers wouldn't move. It felt like something was gripping them. And then he heard it. A whisper. "Don't turn around." The blood in his veins froze. Something was behind him. The room sank into darkness. The laptop screen flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Ethan could barely breathe. Something moved. A faint shuffle, a slow, deliberate step. And then laughter. Not human. Something distorted, deep, yet childish. As if multiple voices were trying to mimic human laughter. Ethan gripped the arms of his chair, his body rigid. He pushed the laptop off the desk, its screen cracking on impact. The room plunged into total darkness. For a moment, there was silence. And then, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks from his bedroom door. But Ethan knew he lived alone. Knock, knock, knock. Each knock echoed through the room, heavier than the last. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. His mind scrambled for a rational explanation. Maybe a drunk neighbor at the wrong door. Maybe the wind, but no. His apartment was on the 3rd floor. The hallway was always dead silent at night. No one should be there. He glanced at the door. A sliver of pure darkness seeped from beneath it, darker than it should be. And then, scratching. Something with long, sharp nails was dragging them down the wood. A slow, deliberate test. And then Ethan realized something far, far worse. His bedroom door was locked. He never locked it. So who did? His chest tightened. He looked at his laptop on the floor. The cracked screen flickered weakly, showing one last message. "It knows you are awake." His heartbeat thundered. The lock on his door began to turn. The doorknob twisted. Slowly. Click. The latch unfastened. Ethan pressed himself against the farthest wall, his breath sharp and uneven. He needed to run, but where? The laptop flickered again. A new message appeared. Run! The door creaked open, and the hallway outside was gone. There were no walls, no floor, just endless breathing darkness. And from it, something moved. A hand. Long, thin fingers with no nails, bending at impossible angles, dragging themselves across the wooden floor. And then another, and another, crawling toward him. Ethan's body refused to move. And then the lights went out. Ethan lunged for the chair and shoved it against the door, trying to block whatever was coming. The fingers reached under the door, twisting, scraping against the floor. His phone buzzed violently in his pocket. A call, unknown number. With shaking hands, he answered. Ethan. His stomach dropped. The voice on the other end was his own. If you run, it will be worse. Click. The call ended. And then silence. The hands were gone. The hallway was back. Like nothing had ever happened. Ethan sucked in a ragged breath. Maybe it was over. His laptop screen flickered one last time. A final message appeared. Look behind you. His muscles locked. He turned, and his reflection was still smiling at him. By sunrise, Ethan sat motionless at his desk, his phone buzzing with missed calls. He ignored them. He had one priority: destroy the video. He opened his laptop. The cursed file was still there. He dragged it to the trash and hit delete. Nothing happened. He formatted the hard drive. The screen flashed. Error. Panic gripped him. He grabbed a USB drive and copied the video, thinking he could delete it from another device. But when he opened the file, it wasn't the video anymore. It was footage of himself, sleeping. Ethan's blood turned to ice. The video wasn't from before. It was from now, his own body lying in bed. And then, in the video, he moved. Not like a natural shift in sleep, but like a puppet being pulled by invisible strings. Ethan was still awake, but his recorded self opened his eyes and looked directly at the camera and smiled. Desperate, Ethan logged back into the forum where he found the cursed link. The post was gone, like it had never existed. He searched the video's name. Nothing, no records, no mentions, until he found something. An old blog, a single post from 2007. The video can't be deleted because it's not just a video, it's a window, and something on the other side is waiting for you to watch. If you've seen it, I'm sorry. At the bottom of the post was a name, Daniel Henshaw. Ethan quickly searched for him, and his stomach dropped. An old news article popped up. Young programmer found dead in his abandoned apartment, laptop still open, playing a video with no title. There was a photo of the victim. Ethan's chest tightened. The man in the photo looked just like him. His phone vibrated. A new message. Unknown number. It's not just a video, Ethan, it's a mirror. And now, it's your turn. Ethan sat frozen, his phone gripped tightly in his trembling hands. The latest message hadn't come from a number. No sender, no contact name. Just one simple question. Do you want to know her name? A sharp chill ran down his spine. Who? Another message. She is the one who must be seen. Ethan's stomach clenched. Before he could react, a scraping sound came from outside his car, a long, slow, metallic drag. Like fingernails across the hood, Ethan did not look, but in the reflection of the rearview mirror, something moved. A shadow folding into itself, trying to fit into the mirror's tiny frame. Its bones cracked and twisted, and then it spoke. He has seen. Now, so have you. The voice didn't come from the mirror. It came from inside the car. Ethan bolted from the car, stumbling onto the deserted gas station pavement. His chest heaved with panic. Behind him, his car's radio crackled to life. Static, Then laughter, glitching, distorted, not human, then a single phrase. He looked, he touched, he crossed. Ethan didn't wait to hear more. He ran, but as he did, he spotted something. A payphone. Old, rusted. The line wasn't even connected. And yet, it rang. 3 times. 4. Ethan's hands shook. Then another ring. 5. The noise wouldn't stop. With a deep breath, he answered. Silence, then breathing, and one whispered sentence. Now, you're on the wrong side of the screen. The call cut out. Ethan's blood turned to ice, because in the shattered glass of the payphone, his own reflection was staring at him, but his real body hadn't moved. And in the mirror, the reflection smiled. Ethan was beginning to understand. The video was not a curse, it was a trade. Someone from the other side needed to come out. And to do that, someone had to take their place. The video was the key, and Ethan was already locked in. But he had an idea. If the video was a trade, who was the first to watch? Daniel Henshaw. Ethan still had Daniel's laptop taken from the abandoned apartment. Maybe there was something in there. He drove to a cheap motel, locked the door, and placed the laptop on the desk. He opened the screen. The video was still there, but this time, it wasn't the hallway anymore. It was Daniel Henshaw, screaming, punching at something invisible. He was trapped. And then he turned, and he saw Ethan. A new message appeared. Help me. The laptop screen glitched violently. The sound was unbearable, a whimpering noise. Not a human sob, something primal, like many voices crying at once. Ethan grabbed the table to steady himself. In the video, Daniel Henshaw's mouth moved. He was saying something, but the sound was gone. Then the screen flickered. A new message appeared. She is already out. Ethan's stomach dropped. He scanned the room. Nothing. The bathroom mirror was covered with a towel, but the small crack at the bottom still reflected a sliver of the room. He didn't want to look, but he did, and he saw something big, too close, breathing behind him. Ethan's hands shook violently. He slammed the laptop shut. The noise stopped. The room went silent. But he knew. The video was no longer inside the screen. It was here. His phone buzzed. Another message. Do not look in the mirror. Ethan froze. But then, something gripped his shoulder, and he knew. He had already looked. Ethan tried to run. Too late. The other Ethan grabbed his face, and then the trade began. The room spun. The air thickened. And then, silence. The lights came back. The motel looked the same. But when Ethan turned to the mirror, the other Ethan was gone. He was here now. The TV clicked on by itself. Ethan saw himself on the screen, trapped, banging on the glass, trying to scream. But the other Ethan, he smiled, and he turned off the TV. Ethan felt hot breath on his neck. He did not want to look. But his mind was screaming that it was already too late. His phone vibrated again. A new message. You looked. A deep chill ran down his spine. The fingers on his shoulder tightened. He needed to run, but before he could move, the lights in the room went out, and the only sound left was nails scraping against the floor. She was crawling closer, and then he heard the worst sound of all. Laughter. Ethan didn't know how long he sat frozen in the darkness. When the lights flickered back on, he was alone. Or so he thought, because the motel TV was now on, and it was filled with faces. Dozens of faces. Men, women, children, all staring. Ethan's stomach twisted. Then, in the center of the screen, a familiar face appeared. Daniel Henshaw. This time, Ethan could hear him. Ethan, you need to listen. She's out, but that doesn't mean it's over. The air in the room grew thick. Ethan stepped toward the screen, his pulse racing. "Who is she?" he whispered. Daniel swallowed hard. "She is the one who watches, the one who must be seen. That is how she survives. And now—" Daniel's face glitched, his eyes wide with fear. "Now she needs you." The TV distorted violently. The static buzzed and shifted. Now Ethan wasn't watching a hallway. He was watching himself, sitting in the motel room, exactly how he was now. But in the reflection of the screen, someone was behind him. Ethan turned immediately. Nothing. He looked back at the screen. The Ethan on the TV wasn't watching anymore. He was looking directly at him. And then, the screen, Ethan smiled and stood up. Ethan did not stand up, but the other Ethan did. That's when he realized, she doesn't just want to get out, she wants to replace me. The TV shut off, but in the bathroom mirror, the other Ethan was still standing. Ethan leapt out of his chair. He had to leave. He rushed to the door and twisted the knob. It was locked. From the inside, by the reflection, the mirror now showed another version of the motel room, a mirror version, and in that world, the other Ethan was holding the doorknob from the inside, smiling. "Don't run, Ethan." The voice came from the mirror. Then, the other Ethan turned off the lights in the mirrored room, and the real room's lights went out too. Total darkness. The only sound was breathing, not his, hers. His phone vibrated one last time. Ethan did not want to look, but he did. A new message. "Look behind you." His lungs froze. He didn't want to, but something in his mind, something that wasn't his own, told him he had to. And so he turned, and he saw the other Ethan standing behind him. His eyes were not eyes. They were black voids, swallowing all light. And then he smiled. Ethan tried to run, too late. The other Ethan grabbed his face, and then the exchange began. The room spun. The air grew thick, and then silence. The lights came back on. The motel looked the same. But when Ethan turned to the mirror, the other Ethan was gone. He was here now. The TV clicked on by itself. Ethan saw himself on the screen, trapped, banging on the glass, trying to scream. But the other Ethan, he smiled, and he turned off the TV. The new Ethan opened his eyes. The motel room was the same, the walls, the furniture, the dim light flickering overhead. But he was no longer Ethan. Now, he was something else. The real Ethan was on the other side, trapped inside the video. And the entity, it was free. Ethan, or what was now Ethan, knew exactly what to do next. He picked up the phone, opened his contacts, and selected a name at random. A new message appeared on the screen. "You have to see this." Attached, the video. And then he smiled. The video didn't start on the internet. It began in 1897, in the basement of a sanitarium where a man named Dr. Samuel Hargrove performed an experiment that should never have happened. His goal, to prove that the dead could still see, and he succeeded at a cost. Samuel Hargrove was a scientist obsessed with the idea that human eyes captured images after death. He wanted to see what the dead saw, and on November 3rd, 1897, he did. He built a crude machine that could extract the last images from a dying person's eyes, and the first test subject was a condemned man, a nameless prisoner. They strapped him to a chair, positioned the machine in front of his face, and then they killed him. The experiment worked. The machine recorded the last thing the prisoner saw, but no one had stopped to ask what he had been looking at before he died. If they had, they might have known that he wasn't looking at this world. He was looking at her. And the recording became the first version of the cursed video. The first footage was grainy, flickering, unstable. But when the scientists played it back, they saw the hallway, the doors breathing, and at the far end, her. Not fully visible, not fully formed, just a shadow watching. That was enough. The first scientist who watched vanished that night. The second gouged out his own eyes. Then they realized the truth. The entity in the video needed to be seen. Every time someone watched, she grew stronger. Every time someone stared for too long, she came out. And that's how the exchanges began. The curse continued. The recording was copied onto film. The film was transferred onto tapes. The tapes were digitized into video, and with each new format, the curse spread further. But the rule remained the same. The one who watches shall be watched. And now, Ethan Carter was the newest witness. But he refused to be trapped forever. He needed to find another set of eyes. He needed someone else to watch. So he typed one more message. Watch until the end. The video spreads like a virus, but it doesn't infect the body. It infects perception. Once someone watches, the entity binds to them. At first it's subtle, a shadow flickering on a phone screen, a reflection that's slightly delayed, a door that seems to inhale and exhale. But then she arrives, and the exchange happens. Ethan's phone vibrated. Someone had watched, and suddenly he felt something lift. The pressure in the room eased. His reflection moved normally again. When he picked up his phone, a new message appeared. You are no longer the prisoner. Now you are the keeper. Ethan exhaled. He was free. But now he was part of the cycle. Now that Ethan was free, he had only one job. Make sure the cycle continues. He opened his laptop, logged into a dark web forum, and posted the link. You have to see this. He closed the laptop and smiled. Somewhere far away, someone's phone buzzed. A curious person, about to press play, and the entity prepared to leave again. Or is it just the beginning? Because now the video is out there, and it may be closer than you think. So, if someone ever sends you a link saying, you have to see this, don't open it, or it might be too late.